Hi guys, shocking fact if you're watching right now, the Indian government is blocking more websites than Pakistan, Bahrain and UAE combined. That's according to a report by Citizen Labs and published in the Indian Express. According to that particular report, Indian internet service providers have installed the highest number of internet filtering systems by one particular provider and blocked the maximum number of web pages. The investigation conducted by Citizen Labs covers 10 countries, of which India tops the list. Indian ISPs have been found filtering access to websites and web pages belonging to domestic and foreign NGOs, human rights groups, health forums, feminist groups and political activists at different points during the survey period. To discuss this and what this report means and its implications for all of us, we're joined by Jay Mazumdar of the Indian Express and Pranesh Prakash, Policy Director at the Center for Internet and Society. Guys, thanks so much for joining us as always on Bloomberg Quinn. Jay, I'd like to start with you. If you could take us through the key findings of this particular report and also tell us how exactly this one particular internet filtering provider, NetPeer, really did all of this in these 10 countries, and also how you guys access that data per se.
Hi. About accessing the data, it's a complex process, but I will keep it short. The primary resources for this investigation were block results from Open Observatory of Networks Interference. It's called UNI, and IC Lab. It's Information Controls Lab. These are two open source softwares which anybody can access. And on these softwares, they use a global list of websites which are randomly tested for blocks in every country, and then they have country-specific list also. So this lists were made up by volunteers over the years. So this data was the first resource base on which this work started. Then the challenge was twofold. That first, we have to find out if an IP address was associated with a bona fide NetSweeper installation. And then second, we have to determine that if that installation belongs to a consumer-facing ISP. So it was done, to put it briefly, that for the first searches we made, used a signature for NetSweeper that Citizen Lab have developed over the years. And for the second, we had to use simple tools like HTTP GET or a reverse DNS lookup. And at a more advanced level, they used something called the host header test. And they also registered a bunch of new domains hosting innocuous text content just to check how a NetSweeper installation might respond to the request for a brand new site and so on. So that's how the research was done. And about NetSweeper, it is one of the major companies which provide text for internet filtering. I think it's now number 2 or 3 globally. Talking only about the internet filtering tech, there are other techs these companies provide. And they use a very simple thing. I mean, they have a software where you or me, anyone, when you write a name of a website, that software takes that information. It has a huge database of different categories of website. It cross-checks, and if there is nothing to be done, it doesn't interfere. So you go to the website. If it has to interfere, it can block that page within milliseconds.
Right, Jay, and thanks for, detailing it out for us. Pranesh, I want to get your take on this. I'll tell you why. The fact that we've been clubbed with these 10 countries is a shocking stat by itself. The fact that we're talking about Pakistan, we're talking about, UAE, we're talking about UAE, we're talking about countries that essentially, well, the popular perception is that we wouldn't really associate them with freedom, so to speak, or a free internet. But that goes to show the level of censorship in a country like India. And there are some semantics which I'm going to get into with Jay in a bit as well. But I want to get your initial take on it, Pranesh, because one, the fact that we're clubbed with these countries, and two, the fact that, well, the highest number of blocked unique URLs in these countries, 1,158 out of 2,464, was also found in India.
Absolutely. So Section 69A, under which the government is authorized to block websites, is itself very vague, allows for overblocking, and there is no mechanism for appeals. There is no mechanism for unblocking. There is no time-bound blocking under that provision. Further, what has been found is that, as per the Indian Express article, the government of India actually denies its role in blocking some of these websites. So that leads us to the conclusion that ISPs on their own are engaging in blocking of websites, which I would argue is a violation of the license, which is an agreement signed between the Department of Telecom and all ISPs in India. So whichever way you look at it, the kinds of websites that have been blocked in India, and not just websites, but also individual tweets in some instances. For instance, last year, I reported that tweets from journalists about Israeli bombing of the Al-Aqsa Mosque were actually banned by the Indian government. Why? Under what law? Under what provision? It wasn't clear at all. So things like this have been going on for a long time. And unfortunately, when this law itself was challenged before the Supreme Court as part of a larger challenge of in the Shreya Singhal case, the Supreme Court upheld this particular provision, but it didn't go into the kinds of flaws which are both inherent in the provision as well as the misuse of this provision of law, and the fact that there is no way of actually combating this misuse without taking it all the way to a high court or a Supreme Court. There is no mechanism by which you can challenge the government, or if you're the owner of a website, or if you've tweeted something that the government has ordered to be blocked, that you can appeal to the government and say, hey, why are you blocking this? And lastly, there is a complete lack of transparency as well. So none of the ISPs actually tell you under what order from the government have they done
Pranesh,
this blocking.
Absolutely spot on. And transparency is my next question, because that's something, Pranesh, that Jay's report also talks about, which is the fact that in a lot of these cases, like you mentioned, yeah, there were Twitter handles that were blocked, foreign NGOs as well. We had a lot of journalist websites and journalist IDs also locked. The Ford Foundation also was, but one key finding, because we don't have that much time, was that in some cases it told you you got an error message saying it was blocked. In a lot of dangerous circumstances, Jay, people didn't even know they were getting blocked, and that's one of the key findings of your report as well. So essentially, if my domain was locked or my page was blocked, I wouldn't even know that it was because I was blocked access for A, B, C reason. I would just be told that it's an error 404, or it's not found, page not found. Those are the kind of issues that were actually told to me.
It happens to all of us. I mean, you try opening a page and then after a point you give up because there is a lag. So you don't know that if it is a connectivity issue or the page has expired or it's censorship. So that's sly and dangerous. But about the NGOs that we have mentioned in our report, I have to qualify that we cannot and do not claim that all these NGOs and organizations were specifically blocked. Our search shows the IP address in these cases, and the ministry, as Pranesh says, that they have denied IT, that they have ordered block of these websites. Now, we're not aware of any court orders asking for these NGOs to be blocked, and it's very unlikely that ISPs would block on their own because the penalty is heavy and they may lose their licenses. So one plausible answer is that they show up blocked because their IP addresses were blocked to block some other website. And now that's also very dangerous. I mean, you can't block IP in a blanket way that blocks hundreds, maybe thousands of websites at one go.
Of course, Jay, and also, there is one unique take that I want to add out here as well, which is the fact that in India, we always find jugaad ways of getting around some of these things, and a lot of these websites did as well. It's not the fact that we needed VPNs to access them. A lot of them just made it a lot easier for us, based on your report, by changing a few letters here and there, adding an extra letter, adding an extra vowel, or changing the .com to a .in. So there are ways that they've come around. But I want to bring up one more thing from your report, is the fact that Citizen Lab identified these particular telcos. We've been talking about telcos a lot on the show today, but Bharti Airtel, Hathway, Reliance Jio, Reliance Communications, Tata Communications, Tata Sky Broadband, Telstra Global, Pacific Internet, Net for India. Okay, it goes on. The list is on, but all of these, and BSNL's national internet backbone, as users of net sweepers filtering systems in India. Pranesh, the fact that the list of names that they've mentioned actually account for 60% of internet traffic altogether, these ISPs, isn't that a worrying stat, considering the amount of data that is being sort of controlled, or the censorship, and what does this say about free speech and expression?
So the amount of censorship in India is absolutely worrying, and some might question why we're bringing up issues of individual websites being blocked, whereas India is also the country that leads the world in the entire internet being shut down, and so that's leading to much greater loss in terms of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and ability to conduct economic transactions. And the internet is part of our everyday lives. So it really affects us and really degrades our quality of life when the government, when a local district magistrate decides, without any authority of law, I might add, that internet must be shut down, mobile internet in this entire district must be shut down, and so on. So there's a real problem of lack of accountability here. And what we need are laws that at least allow for transparency in the first place, that say if the government is ordering the blocking of a website, unless it is something very sensitive, like a child pornography website whose existence itself would be controversial, that the government should actually put up information about why it is blocking the website, about there is a government committee that needs to be making that decision as per the law, and the deliberations of that committee need to be made public. And currently, unfortunately, to RTIs that some people have filed, they have refused to even provide this data, this information as to why certain websites are being blocked, or even as to which websites are being blocked in India, which I don't know of any book that has been banned, and you're not allowed to find out which book is banned or why it is banned. So why have a separate standard when it comes to websites?
We have so many global conversations here where we talk about censorship in China, and we talk about what a worrying situation it is for free speech, or we talk about how in the UAE we don't have video calling. But it's a shocking revelation, based on Jay's report with Citizen Labs, that we have been clubbed together in any sort of a survey when it comes to censorship of free speech, with Afghanistan, Bahrain, India being in the list, Kuwait, Pakistan, Qatar, Somalia, Sudan, UAE, and Yemen. It's an absolutely shocking stat, and something that we all need to consider. Guys, thanks so much for joining us on Bloomberg Quint and speaking to us on the internet. Thanks so much, and all of you watching, well, stay tuned. There's a lot more coming on Bloomberg Quint.